This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, last year for the 45th anniversary of Fritz the Cat, we had the wonderful Ralph Bakshi on here to celebrate that film. And he has been gracious enough to come back on again to celebrate the 45th anniversary of Heavy Traffic. So how you do, Ralph?
Okay, I'm fine.
Yes. We got some freezing rain coming down here right now. What's it like where you are?
It's cold. We had a cold front move in from Mexico and freezes. It's fine. I'm in a house in a warm studio.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ice and snow. It's great. There's no problem.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you very, very, very much for last year's interview. That was so much fun. We had somebody in the studio here that was pitching a show, and he was asking me about my show, and I was sharing with him a bunch of the interviews I did, and you were the one that he was focused on asking questions about.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Listen, that's fine. That's great. I have no idea what's going on, but let's try it.
Yes. Well, you followed up, of course, Fritz the Cat with Heavy Traffic, which, it had a lot of the same style in it. How did you come up with the story concept for Heavy Traffic in comparison to Fritz the Cat, where Fritz the Cat, you went one direction. This one, not so different, but yet different in other ways. What was your process in that?
Well, first of all, I take exception with you saying not so different. I think it was enormously different. I mean, it was my mind as far as animation goes, and what animation has done, I found it the biggest step forward. I'll explain why. First, because people today it's hard to understand that, but in those days there were two things. Okay, there was one thing. There was Disney and there was Warner Brothers, and everybody followed that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was everybody. Then along comes Fritz the Cat, which was tremendously different, but in a simplistic form. It was still very much for fun. It had some moments in it of seriousness, but it was basically a spoof, a satire, and it was still animals that were in animation that took on human form that was traditional to what animation always did. Okay?
Yep.
So that was Fritz. Then along comes Traffic out of nowhere, which are human characters.
Yep.
Not only are they human characters, they're ethnic. You know who they are. They're Italian.
Mm-hmm.
They're Jewish.
Yep.
They're black. So that's that in itself is a major step forward. You have animation that now is human, that now doesn't hide the ethnicity of the characters. And then you have a story that is pretty much serious about the growing up of a young boy who never went to bed with a girl until he met a black girl and had a girlfriend, and his father was a racist, the boy's father. Also, the father and the mother were split in their religion. One was Catholic and one was Jewish.
Yep.
You have Michael. Well, those are enormous differences. That's not close to Fritz. That's a million miles away. For animation, I'm not saying.
I'm talking about humor-wise. Was it similar? Yes, it was definitely different from what you're saying. Yes. In fact, one thing I want to point out, and I really like this in the film, was the live-action sequences. You go back to the slot machine, or not slot machine, the pinball machine there throughout the film, where the guy is frustrated, and there's a lot of symbolism there. What made you decide to do some live action in with this?
For the same reason I wanted to do the film, is to get believability
mm-hmm.
on the subject matter. No matter how much you sat in the theater, you'd never believe the cats were real, and Fritz the Cat and all those animals would have to be real.
Mm-hmm.
To try to maintain the realism of after, which animation never did, I thought live action, and along with the backgrounds and along with intercuts, would help. It did. So it was done to try to get more and more believability into an animated film.
Yes, you had. I got this written down here. Joseph, is it Kaufman who played Michael?
Yes.
Yes, he looked very much like the animated character of him. How did you get him? Because I liked him in the film, but did you animate the character after him, or did you just strike out and cast really well?
Well, you got to do things in order. So at first I cast the live action Michael.
Okay.
And when I found somebody I liked, then we used him as the model to draw from. It's not that complicated. In other words, you find Michael, the real person first.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, then you draw a caricature of him. So once you have the real character, just no problem doing a portrait of him.
Yeah, so he did a good job in the film. Yeah. Is he still working?
He died.
Oh, I didn't know that. I looked him up. Yeah.
Nobody knows that. He was going to be very famous. That was his first picture, and he did a tremendous job. And, it's a very big tragedy, really. And I loved him very much. He had never acted in a film before, though. I cast him. He was an actor, and he came up.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of doing Michael Pollard as Michael, and Michael Pollard had just finished up Bonnie and Clyde.
Mm-hmm.
And Pollard was perfect for Michael, I thought, at the beginning. But this other Michael brought a sense of realism. He wasn't stupid. In other words, Pollard could come off as a dimwit sometimes.
Yeah.
And what I liked about this Michael was that he came off as a guy, just a guy. He wasn't stupid, and, he was just a good guy. So I went with him. But he got killed in a plane crash.
Oh.
If I could say something. Yeah, but he was flying in marijuana from Mexico into L.A. and he crashed. So it was during. That's how crazy that was.
Oh wow, well, that's unfortunate. He had a nice regular everyday guy look to him in that film. Yeah.
He was that kind of guy. He was a very nice guy. Did a great job. His voice was great. And he was a pilot.
Okay.
And he was doing somebody a favor with his friends, and it cost him his life.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, Michael Kaufman did a great job in the movie. I really liked him in it, and the whole thing with playing the pinball machines. Was that something that goes back to your younger days, or was that just something you put in for the story?
Well, it was not my younger days. Basically, when I went to Cannes Film Festival with Fritz the Cat,
Mm-hmm.
Fritz the Cat was the first animated film that was allowed at the Cannes Film Festival. Ridiculous, but that shows you ways, And then I went to Paris after the festival was over. And in Paris, I stayed up most of the night in the bars there for a while. And all the bars had a pinball machine.
Okay.
So I did a lot of pinball. I used to play in New York, but pinball was illegal when I was growing up. You ran into them very occasionally in different candy stores, but you didn't see much of them. But I understood what they were, and I played sometimes in Coney Island, where they had sort of a pinball game. But in the bars of Paris, every bar in Paris, a small bar, every bar in Paris has a pinball machine or two, very old-fashioned, with the flippers and everything. was also fish. And I played it all night. Usually after a while, lots of drinks, a lot of girls, and running and screaming around. So I was always playing in a haze of noise, smoke, because everyone smokes in Paris, even the cat. The cat smokes, dogs smoke.
Yeah.
So that's what. So I had done that. Then I come home, and when I was writing Fritz, it just came up. In other words, no, when I was writing Traffic, because it was an experience of mine under a haze, and that's what Michael was, dreaming about all the stuff at a pinball machine.
Yeah.
So it just jumped right in. But basically, most of what I did with all my films was look at life around me and use that coon-skin American pop, hey, good-looking. What I'm saying was my style was not to go fantasy. I'm not putting Disney down. I'm just saying I was bored with that stuff of always doing a fairy tale with mice running around, etc. I was very much into my life as autobiographical material for my animated films. And that was a major step for me with what I was doing. So it was life that got into my film, music that I listen to that very day, as opposed to always creating some farce or some fantasy that animation did in storyboards and all that garbage.
Okay.
Am I clear?
Yep.
Any sense? Because I'm getting old with this.
No, you're good. There was another.
Factual. I'm not trying to say one thing is greater than another. Be very clear.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be factual with you as to how I got to where I was going.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anyone else should do what I did, or not do what I did. So I'm not bragging. I'm just giving you the facts. I don't want to sound like I'm, just speaking some sort of great biblical moment in my life. I'm not.
I think it's good for
all writers.
Yeah. I think it's good for people to do their own thing and not have to go by other people's standards. I think that's great that you did your own thing.
Oh, yeah, I'm just a pain in the ass. There was no way I wasn't going to, given the opportunity. Only in as much as when it came to, do you want to get rich or do you want to do your own thing? I picked doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they pictured this so well was kind of stunning to the animation industry.
Yeah.
They were very low-budget films. These are very low-budget movies.
Mm-hmm. One scene that stood out to me too, also, was the scene where you had the live women, but animated over top of them, and they wore clown makeup. I found this to be most interesting. Talk about that sequence.
Well, it's very hard to explain why you do something all the time. And sometimes afterwards you get a reason.
Yeah.
But when I did that sequence in the garment center, I was very familiar with my brother-in-law owned a sweatshop in the garment center in Manhattan. And all the models and everyone that ran around up there were very clownish, funny people. But the garment center was like the end of the world. After that was the Bowery. So when I thought of these girls running around all overweight and old, they came off as clowns to me if I just put clown makeup on them. And what they were doing was, fixing their brassieres and trying to try on these clothes was all hysterically funny and vulgar at the same time. So if you go up there, his name was Jerry, just like the guy in the movie.
Okay.
And Jerry always promised me a job but never gave me one. So I use that in the movie too,
Yeah.
But that was, but it was hysterical up there, and I put that scene in. Again, Michael had a problem with sexuality, so fat women, not their fault, they eat too much. Running around in possession and everything really embarrassed him. So,
okay.
he was pretty depressed. So was I.
Yeah, I like that sequence, especially the lighting of it as well. But the women, of course, in the clown makeup, and they were laughing at at Michael when he went into the boxes, and of course Michael, of course, being inexperienced with women, there's kind of a symbolism there of him being laughed at, not just by women, but by his peers, and even to an extent, even being looked down on by his own father.
Well, that's right. There you go.
Yep.
That's exactly right. That's
Yep.
exactly right. Also, if I remember now that I used negative. I shot the girl, but then when I put him on the screen, I used the negative as a positive, which is unusual. So it had this strange look to it. Now I remember. Which was also very frightening, like some sort of sick circus, you know.
Yeah. And of course, you had other, like, I love the styles all through this, like the scenes that were in black and white, the sketches, you know, where they would shift, like the penis and the boob sequence, you know. And I always find too in a lot of your films, you have a lot of scenes with women, and and suddenly one breast would come out of their shirt.
Well, I'm a very sick man. The other thing, there's so much as a young man that I'm quite surprised now.
Yeah.
But I was also not into, animation also to keep the same style for the whole film.
Mm-hmm.
And there were all these fights in studios. Someone drew the wrong style, someone did the wrong background color. They make sure that everything conformed. And I said, the hell with that. I can go from one style to another in the film, which I did.
Yep.
There was backgrounds and characters, and what is it? One style. It's ridiculous. What you have to do is do what's right emotionally for the scene. That's what painters do. They paint different pictures that are emotionally correct. So one style may not be right, the same style for a scene, like the penis running around, if you pardon the expression.
Yeah.
That has to be true black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Put highlights on that. So basically, so I changed style a lot. I did that in all my films, including live action that I inserted into the film.
Yeah,
I was a pain in the ass to animate.
Well, even too, the same style was done again, and I love this, where the key inserts into the ignition, and it turns into a woman's vagina, and I love the shifting, and I love the symbolism, because you can feel so much of what's going through Michael's head at the same time, and his frustrations.
Well, that's what writing and directing is supposed to be about.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't a scene, hopefully, you can't bat 1,000, but there isn't a scene in the story that's not reflective of what is pushing, either subliminally or in clarity of what Michael is going through. In other words, things just don't end up in a movie by accident. Everything you're saying is right. That's why I said you were right before.
Yeah.
Everything a writer does, or should do, what directors should do, should be strengthening the character in the story through symbolism and things that going on in Michael's head, etc., etc. That's why that's the strength of Heavy Traffic. I mean, basically, if you do that right, you don't have to have all that fancy animation.
No.
Expensive animation. Not that fancy animation is bad. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is the picture doesn't resonate on just fancy animation, which is what the other studios are all trying to do. Spend a lot of money and make it very beautiful. And that would carry the day in the theater, except 2 weeks after you saw the film all that, you forgot it.
Yeah.
45 years later, they're still screening Heavy Traffic.
Yep.
Not because it's a tremendous animation quality, but because of things that you mentioned that somehow pop out in the film, different people. I don't know don't know how that was done. I mean, I can't explain it today.
Yeah, and another thing.
I never did it before. I mean, the thing that's crazy is I've thought about it a lot. I never did that before I did it. I mean, it wasn't where I was thinking about it or did it anywhere else. In other words, I created the Mighty Heroes. So that's funny as the one thing is that's what stunned me. Like, where did that come from? I have no idea.
Yeah, and I love those sequences too where Michael's watching the movie and it's actually a real movie on the screen. And of course, what he's watching is somebody getting crass with a female and even physically violent, and then he winds up getting shot. Of course.
Well, you can't think about that. That's again, Michael's afraid of sex.
Mm-hmm.
So here he is, and he's watching a movie, and the scene after that, he pushes the girl off the roof.
Oh, I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, but you see how these things hook up? I mean, you see how these things should go in order for reasons. The movie scene was a very important scene. The live action Clark Gable that got shot.
Okay, I didn't know the movie.
Very famous picture. It was his wife. I forget her name. Before he married her, she's a beautiful blonde girl.
Okay.
But you see, that was right before Michael on the roof is accosted by a girl who's as brazen as the girl in the movie was.
Mm-hmm.
Because Clark Gable in the movie was telling the girl to lower the curtains. What are you doing? He was very nervous over. So that's how films should progress. At least that was my feeling.
Yeah, I love that touch, though, when the girl comes off the roof and then eventually you reveal that she didn't hit the ground. She was just dangling by 1 foot on a little high wire there and was just swinging back and forth. I thought that was a funny touch.
Well, what's amazing about that? See, first of all, I also, because I'm a writer and director and producer,
yeah,
I have certain strengths that most animation directors don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Because I own the company, right? I set it up perfectly for the director, happened to be me. That scene of her hanging came almost at the end of the film. I pushed her off the roof and and we heard the sound as I crashed. Towards the end of the film, I said, that would be terrible for Michael to have heard that.
Yeah.
I went back and put a swing in, and it was hysterical. You're right. I mean, but then I nearly blew that one. I mean, I came really close to, I didn't show it hit the ground, thank God. So basically, I just used a sound effect to try to soften it. It always bothered me in the movie, or it started to bother me more at the end. I just put it dangling.
Yeah, and I loved that she's dangling by her foot. 1 foot's kind of going forward, I just loved the way you animated the way her body was positioned. She was kind of going back and forth, and she was just passed out. I'm glad you put that in because it adds a nice touch. But yeah, we had a couple of other scenes too that I wanted to bring up. I love, for example, again, you show so much style in this movie, so much. You get a scene, for example, where Michael brings this his animated or cartoon work into this guy with an IV in him. I love that when the IV's turning up the blood and it's almost like a drug.
Well, it's keeping him alive, yeah.
Yep. But I love the animation, like, again, a different style. You go to the mother pile scene, and of course you got the yeah.
That was a forerunner of Wizards in that scene.
Yes.
That fantasy scene eventually ended up being Wizards, to tell the truth. But, well, I would always test styles in a film. The guy in bed was the head of a syndicate. Now, in New York, as a cartoonist, all the cartoonists used to really dislike the syndicate that put comic strips in the newspapers, because they kept saying, give me a family strip, give me an adventure strip. They were about as boring. as to what comics could have been. So those guys that ran comic syndicates, I was making fun of him, the guy in bed. And that's what killed him. Michael's story killed him. So I did a lot of cartoonists out there favor.
Yeah.
So again, that's personal again as to how the cartoonists really disliked the guys that ran syndicates because of how they just didn't take a chance on anything.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the guy is beaten and shot, and of course that's a symbolism of shame, and of course that comes across too. Yep.
That's true.
Yep.
You saw the film. I'm glad you saw the film.
Yeah.
I've been interviewed with guys who didn't see the movie I did, so I usually hang up on. I mean, imagine nervous guys calling you and wanting to interview you on a movie having never seen it. Yeah.
Oh, I've seen it.
I know, I can see that.
Well, that's why I go into such detail, you know. But
Correct detail. That's why I like to talk to you, because I forget. You remind me of a film I haven't seen in a long time. So.
Yeah. Well, I watched Heavy Traffic recently too to just get caught up on it, so I could give you as much detailed questions, because I know you like that in Fritz the Cat, you know. And yep. I'm waiting for these movies to come out on Blu-ray, you know, because that's where I'd really like to get hold of them, you know. But
well, I don't know whether Heavy Traffic will, you know, I don't know. They're not taking good care of my movies. Different producers of very low repute have owned them. I don't know. We'll see. But it's not, you know, I don't know.
Well,
anyhow, hold on to what you got, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Ask me another question. Where are you, in Canada?
I'm in Canada. I am in Fredericton, New Brunswick. That is.
Isn't that cold?
It's in Atlantic Canada, way up east. Our closest neighbors is Nova Scotia.
Yep. Yeah, that's very Nova Scotia. Beautifully bleak. I love it.
Yeah, you've been up there, huh?
Oh yeah. I went up there. Very famous American photographer lived there for a while.
Yeah.
For a long time. I forget his name. The American by I'm forgetting.
I don't know.
No, it's a nice place. I worked in Toronto for a year or two with Al Guest Studio. That was in Toronto with the Robin Hood and Spider-Man back in the day. And I never forget how cold it was in Toronto compared to New York.
Well, it's pretty cold here.
Yeah, you get into a cab with there's ice on the floor. Ice! It's so freezing, you know?
Oh, yeah. It's funny, I was just, I lived here all my 45 years, and I was just left the province for the first time last year. One of my interview guests invited me to a convention in Toronto, and I was her guest, and it was just an honor. And then I met all kinds of people and got some interview connections, and it was just a great thing. So it was a lot of fun.
Toronto's a beautiful city, right?
Yeah, I love it. Didn't want to come home, actually, but, but good.
What, you married?
No.
Well, you can pack up someday and just try to take a chance to live there a couple of years.
Yeah.
You starve to death or something.
I was good. Yeah. I was going to say, Heavy Traffic, you did a lot of things at that time that were pretty daring. Of course, there was films before that were daring, Fritz the Cat being one. But, of course, you know, you got the cross-dresser, of course, who, of course, humiliates this guy that thinks he's really a female. That scene was pretty funny. It didn't matter what he did to him. He just get off on that.
Well, she loved it. Yeah. Snowflake.
Yep.
You know, in animation, there wasn't any, again, this is not bragging, there wasn't anything like it.
Nope.
In other words, I've gotten into arguments, friendly arguments, discussions, they're not arguments, discussions, better word, with people that say, you know, Yellow Submarine was adult. I said, not to me it was. In other words, this thing that you get pointing to as adult or Bugs Bunny's adult is just hyperbole that critics like to talk about because it gives them something to allude to. It wasn't anything as violent as depraved, as sexual, as racist, as heavy traffic in the characters, not the picture. There wasn't anything like it in animation. So when somebody used to say that, the Magic Planet or something, I said, well, look, it was different than Disney, but it wasn't adult in the sense where traffic is adult. This is really adult.
Yep. And of course, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, too, I love the characters of the parents. The mom's supportive. I always feel bad. She brings this nice big breakfast tray into her son. It makes me so hungry when I see it, and he tosses it out the window. I mean...
Well, your mother brought in a breakfast tray, and a tit kept falling out. That would probably make you sick to your...
I suppose.
Your mother came in, and that's what happened.
And of course, he's sitting on... His father's sitting on the toilet talking to him. So.
Yeah, the mother's breath is falling out. The father's on the toilet, and you expect him to eat. This is typical of parents. They think they're giving you love. Yep.
Well, there was a sequence in that movie that some people would find offensive, but you found a way to make it so hilarious. Is when his parents get into a fight, and she winds up being decked, and she's out on a clothesline, and she keeps going back and forth. He keeps smashing her, and she keeps going back and smashing her. Where did that come from?
That was my homage to Chuck Jones and the Roadrunner.
Okay.
that was my homage to the Roadrunner. That was my homage to cartooning.
Yep.
In other words, cartooning, animation, in shorts were always violent.
Mm-hmm.
The Roadrunner and things blowing up and teeth falling out.
Yep.
I don't have to tell you. So that was my homage to all that.
Yep.
I could have kept smashing it for the rest of the film and be totally satisfied. But I had to get on to other things.
Yeah. And of course, we know why Michael is so weak, especially in dealing with sex, because his father he's so weak, he has to react aggressively to his wife because that's the only way that he can hide the fact that he feels weak. I mean, you get that scene, for example, where he tries to light the cigarette and ends up going out, and you can see the patch of black on his finger, where he's everybody's walked away, and he feels like that patch, an ash.
Well, he also went to bed with a bunch of girls in the back of a truck. Let's not forget that.
Yep. One of them, of course, was the male. Yep.
Yeah. So basically, you're right about the kind of guy he is. You're usually right about everything you say.
Yep. But
so again, that's the young directors out there.
Mm-hmm.
Things should follow through in movies.
Yeah.
If they don't follow through, the movie loses resonance. So the point is, that's what's important in the movie, that one scene leads to another, but it's also a mirror of what might happen later on in the picture. All of that adds up to an emotional feeling that you've seen something, and the picture ends.
Interestingly enough, where his father failed, you get the sense that, especially by the last shot of the movie, that nice, beautiful live-action sequence, is that Michael is somehow going to succeed just by being genuine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's also dancing with a black girl, which was, in those days, a big no-no. And also against the Italian religion and his father and all that. So he turns out to be fine. Yeah, absolutely. Michael, we both know Michael's a good guy.
Yep.
He didn't do anything wrong.
No.
He tried. Michael tried.
I loved it, though, when he's walking down the street and he sees the real version of what was animated in his head, and he sees this woman, and he's trying to communicate with her and communicate, and he's failing. But like I said, that last shot is just fantastic. Kudos to you on that.
Well, listen, thanks. A long time ago, 45 years, you said?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
Jesus, I'm getting up. Listen, what can I tell you? What can I tell you? Glad I made the film. I'm very happy I did. You know,
I love the Godfather reference in it, especially the guy's got bullet holes all through him and still walking around.
you can't kill those guys. You kill one, another one pops up. You can't. They don't die. You got the same thing today.
Mm-hmm.
The bad guys don't seem to die. They keep coming back.
Yeah. Even when he's eating the spaghetti and the spaghetti shifts form, you know, you can see he's devouring people and devouring everything around him, you know, and he's just not dying. I love that whole spaghetti sequence.
You know, the spaghetti sequence which came to me as a flash was one of the honors that's given to a cartoonist sometimes. Will Eisner, who's a great cartoonist,
Okay.
very, very famous, the Spirit and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back in the 80s, I was reading a graphic novel of his, and he had somebody eating spaghetti with people hanging from it, just like Heavy Traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Will, I got you. You got one. So I'm thinking, you know, I'm not putting that down. I'm thinking it's such an honor for a man like Will Eisner. I got to use it. But I spent all my youth looking at other cartoons saying, I got to learn how to do what he did, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you could find it somewhere, but no one ever mentioned it. This is the first time I mentioned it in 50 years.
Okay.
I have so many animation freaks in the business who want me to go away who would never mention. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there are many, many animators who don't like this stuff. Let me be very clear.
Okay.
You know, what I don't want to do with you, I'm not complaining at all if everyone liked this stuff. I failed. But the being the pain in the ass I am. But let me be very clear. You're talking about a guy who appreciates and obviously intellectually knows what I was after and how to put pieces together.
Yep.
Is rare. Believe it or not, a lot of animators can't stand Heavy Traffic. Are we clear on that?
Well, you know what? I definitely appreciate Heavy Traffic. I appreciate all your work. You know, I love.
I'll let you know that it wasn't. Yeah, but I just want. I don't want to. I don't want people out there just thinking it was all roses for me.
No.
I had animators calling me names, saying I sold out the industry. But
yeah,
let me be very. I want to be clear about. Not that I care,
mm-hmm.
and not that people don't know that. I think most people know that.
Oh
but
yeah.
I don't want to give the impression that every animator, unlike yourself, and I'm doing it. Why I like to talk to you is because you understand at least what I was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
These guys never bothered to see what I was trying to do, even if they didn't like it.
That's right.
In other words, you could learn from other people's mistakes, you know. So that was always troublesome to me to have to worry about that sort of thing. I had enough worries trying to get my producers not to shoot me.
Yeah.
You know? But I just had to say that now because I didn't want to give them. I don't want to give them a pass.
No.
I don't want to let them off the hook now that I'm just about finished.
One scene I wanted to point out too, where you got somebody in the film, of course, is shot in the head, and you got a woman who ends up transforming into a crow. And I love that sequence as well. And I won't give anything away in what the scene was involving, but of course.
Well, Michael was shot in the head. His head blew open.
Okay.
That was Michael that was shot in the head.
I know that. I didn't know if you wanted me to give that away.
Black Crow.
Yeah.
Jim Crow is the racist. Down south, Jim Crow were racist.
Mm-hmm.
So Carol, who was black and had a little trouble with Michael's father being black, turned into a crow, a black crow.
Okay.
Flew away screaming in horror. So that is more symbolism. I don't know where that came from. That was the reasons for it. How I get there is I don't remember anymore. I'm writing and I'm storyboarding, and how I get to this. You see something and you use it. Here it is. I never questioned myself.
Okay.
I'm not a great analytical guy. If I like something and think of it, it goes in. I don't sit to debating it too long,
Okay.
But that was my art training. My art training in the 50s was abstract expressionism, Jackson Pollock, the abstract artist. So that was always a gesture and how you felt about paint. And you just put it down on the canvas. All this thinking, or like Norman Rockwell, very talented, but all this thinking about values and color and beauty was not for me. I like spontaneity.
Mm-hmm.
In music too, Miles Davis and all the jazz. I was also a great jazz lover and still am. So improvisation, very important to how I think.
And of course, one of the live action sequence when, of course, Michael's walking after he pushes over the pinball machine, he walks out. Of course, you got a gunslinger who who's playing this game where he's shooting, and he drops dead after being supposedly shot. And I thought that was kind of funny because it brings that takes you out of the animation, but it brings something so surreal into reality.
Yeah, I know. Those places, those pinball arcades in 42nd Street in New York, and these dives were like that. They were very strange.
Yeah.
They were, oh yeah, they were very. Every freak in New York would end up down there on a Saturday night playing these underground places. These guys taking pictures of themselves dropping his pants in the photo booth. I mean, these places were real. Again, all these places were part of the city, and the depravity I was into at the time, showing, writing, looking at, I don't know, photographs.
Yeah.
And part of that generation, Ouija, Dan Arthur.
Yeah. Beverly Hope Atkinson played Carol, of course, and again, good casting. I love the fact that you got people that you were able to make such great animations of, and I love that contrast where it goes from the animation to the real people, and it was great when we saw her on there as well, the same style. Of course, she's no longer with us either.
Is she? She's gone.
Yeah, she's gone. I looked her up. Yeah, she's gone.
Well, the people are cast first. But, animation directors like myself know cast people that I know are going to like to animate. I mean, you're not casting people you don't want to draw.
No.
You see what I'm saying? It's not lots of studios. If you're animating with someone else's casting, they may give you a character you don't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I had great leverage because I owned the company and I directed and produced. So I had great leverage on these things that normally most animators pull their hair out of their head.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that they're stuck with. Not that I don't make mistakes, but I'm saying at least they're my mistakes.
And another sequence that I found funny too was where they're up on the rooftop, and of course you've got the African American gentleman who wants to kill the pigeon, and Michael lets the pigeon free and it flies, but it keeps coming back, kind of like how Michael keeps coming back to his misery, and in the end the pigeon takes a dump on him.
Yeah, and the black guy says, "I like that bird," because
yeah,
because the bird shit on a white guy.
Yeah,
I like that bird. I love that line. I like that bird. And that was my favorite line in the whole picture. I like that bird.
Yeah.
All right, listen. I am finished. I can't talk anymore.
Actually, I just have one last question. You mentioned
All right,
you mentioned music. And I noticed Scarborough Fair, which was featured, of course, in The Graduate, is featured throughout this as well. What made you choose that song?
I love that song.
It is a great song, yep.
I just love the song.
Okay.
I love the song. Just because Mike Nichols used it doesn't mean I can't.
Oh, absolutely.
Mike Nichols asked me whether I was making fun of The Graduate. He asked me that.
Oh, did he?
I said, no, Mike. I just like the goddamn song. And it was right for the movie.
It was.
Right for the movie.
Yeah, it kind of stood out to me, and I jotted that down here, you know.
It wasn't good. Mike Nichols thinks he was his song. No one else is going to use it. It's ridiculous. I mean, you know.
Yeah, like all kinds of people use Mrs. Robinson, so why not?
I'll use whatever I think is right for the movie. I could care less where it comes from, who did it, who wrote it.
Yep.
You know, if it's too hot, if it's too cold, if it's too long, sure. If I like it, I use it.
Well, Ralph, I am going to wrap this up because I know you've got a busy day, but I am going to say that...
I'm not taking that. I get tired fast.
Oh, did you? Well, I'm going to say this. I unfortunately, I reached out to Eddie about Skip Hinnick. I'm still willing to have him on if he'd like to come on.
Is that Fritz?
Yeah, about Fritz.
I don't know. You know, I don't talk to Skip. Skip did a lot of things in the business. Skip was very, very proper and very... Skip was Fritz the Cat. Very proper, very, very suburban. So I don't know. You'd have to reach out to Skip on your own.
Okay.
Get the number. I don't know where he is, but I have no pull over Skip head.
Okay. Well, I was happy to celebrate Fritz last year, and I'm happy to celebrate Heavy Traffic this year. And like I said, I've watched Coonskin, and I've watched Hey Good Lookin' here recently too.
We'll do Coonskin next year from here. If not, I'll get Eddie to fake it and make leave it to me.
Well,
all right, you take care. Look, stay out of the cold.
Yep.
Speak to you next year. Go see. Thanks for the coverage of the movie.
Yep.
You're very well versed in what you're looking at. I like that.
Sure.
Move to Toronto. Spend 2 years.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. Love to.
Have a ball. Have a good life, man.
Absolutely. Well, God bless you, Ralph, and thank you for the honor.
You.
Take care.
Please. I love talking to you.
Absolutely.
Next year, we'll do another movie. We'll do a movie a year.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll be 81 next year, so be careful. Call early. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.